Welcome back to the Quiet Millionaire, where we don't chase wealth, we regulate into it. Ever notice how even rest feels like failure? You sit down, just for a moment, and already you're scanning for what could go wrong next. You step outside for just a breath, and the back of your mind nags about unread mails, missed calls that aren't even real yet, unfinished lists that seem to multiply on their own. Ever feel like slowing down is more terrifying than burning out? The idea of doing less isn't relief, it's anxiety. Pausing even for good news isn't truly safe. There's always something waiting for you on the other side of calm. That's not an opinion, that's the wiring. It's the cost. Ever wonder why urgency still runs your mornings, even when you know better? You try to regulate. You listen to all the best podcasts. You fill journals with goals and affirmations that look reasonable on paper. But in the morning, the pressure is waiting by your bed, like it never left. You're not imagining this. Today, we're not talking mindset. We're addressing what's underneath your money behavior. Let that land. There's a reason exhaustion clings to people like us. I'm thinking of someone I work with. Call him James. He built his business in silence. Never asked for applause. Just wanted enough to know his family was secure. He doesn't splurge. He doesn't show off. But every year, he carries one more invisible brick. The money grew. The pressure grew, too. He says the anxiety is quieter, but heavier. He wonders why he wakes up tired, even when nothing is wrong. James isn't broken. He isn't weak. You already know this. If you see yourself there, know this. There's a pattern to what you're carrying. It's lived beneath your ambition for longer than you realize. It moves through quiet families, the ones who taught themselves to be useful, not loud. It shapes the way you walk into rooms, the way you spend money, the way you earn it. There's nothing dramatic about this. It's just true. Here is what I want you to try. Pause for half a breath and see where your own story overlaps. For most, the body tells the truth before the mind does. Tight chest before a big decision. Jittery hands with a new client contract. The moment someone depends on you, the weight triples. The nervous system remembers. You're not alone in this. You're just observant enough to notice. We call it emotional responsibility, but it's more like an heirloom. Something passed down without words. Something stored in the tone of voice at dinner. In the unspoken rule to never waste money, even if you have enough. Most families don't even know they're passing it down. You learn to anticipate loss before you experience it. This is where most people get stuck, trying to logic their way out. You can read about wealth psychology or listen to talks on anxiety and trauma, but none of that speaks to what your body is still holding. Your system adapted to be steady, to not scare anyone, to move money in safe, small movements, so when real success comes, it actually feels like stress. The wiring is old, but it's not a flaw. If this shows up in your week, pause there. Maybe you hesitate before clicking invest. Maybe you close the tab when prices feel big, even if you have the funds. Maybe every time you buy something just for you, there's a tiny guilt hangover. All of this is information, not evidence against you. Sit with it. Watch it in small moments. Don't dramatize it. There's a nervous system pattern beneath every bank transaction. Every yes or no carries a secret ledger. How safe do I feel right now? For quiet builders and entrepreneurs, folks who locked away a lifetime of emotional labor just to keep moving, this is the code. Your system learned excess isn't safe. Calm is mistaken for laziness. Guilt gets assigned to moments of ease. The people around you benefit from your steadiness, but very few notice the cost of holding all those invisible weights. This isn't theory. This is your nervous system adapting. You might look calm to everyone else, but you know the cycle. Produce, protect, pause, then start over. No celebration. It probably started young. Before you had much to your name, you learned to anticipate emotion, to deaden your own needs so nobody else would feel unstable. Now that you're building wealth, even quietly, that same pattern kicks in. It's not self-sabotage. It's ancestral. It runs deeper than decisions. It plays out in silence when nobody is watching. Here's the sabotage pattern. You work in a way that looks productive from the outside. The calendar is full. The phone pings with reminders. Every gap between meetings is a catch-up moment. But underneath all the activity, there's a constant, low-level threat, the sense that if you stop, everything will unravel. You've normalized burnout and called it progress. There's the urgency of being the first to reply, the last to leave the office even from home. You answer business texts on the treadmill. You scan a mail in the parking garage before you even turn off the car. If you take an afternoon off, you ask for forgiveness or explain yourself as if your right to step away needs approval. None of this is laziness. None of it is carelessness. In fact, the root is the opposite. It's hyper-responsibility you learn somewhere, often young, that you must keep it all held together, that your value is proven through relentless effort, not steady presence. You don't quite trust rest. You feel exposed when you ease up, as if invisible hands will snatch away what you've built. That's the real cost living with your nervous system on call, even when nothing urgent is happening. Here's what I want you to try. Pause. Notice your hands in this moment. Are they relaxed or bracing? How fast are your eyes moving across the screen? Everyone says they want peace. Few people recognize what it costs to create it daily. You already know this. You've been trading your baseline safety for recognition. You've mistaken regulation inner steadiness for repression, controlling your reactions, smoothing down your voice, staying agreeable so no one feels uncomfortable. It looks like discipline from outside. Inside, it's holding your breath and bottling your truth to keep the business running. You check Slack at dinner, just in case. You keep your phone on even in the shower. You apologize for a single slow afternoon, not because work is at risk, but because somewhere in your body, you learn that being on is what makes you safe. You wait for the world to reassure you that nothing will collapse if you close your laptop. The world doesn't. So you grip harder. Nervous system truth. You can only white-knuckle success for so long. Eventually, your system signals what your mind ignores: fatigue, cynicism, a sense of staring at your balance sheet and feeling nothing. That's not failure. That's a warning. This is where most people get stuck. They confuse activity with value. They mistake urgency for excellence. But urgency is a performance. It can look impressive, but it's rarely sustainable. Does this sound familiar? You rev up each morning, even when a slower start would serve you. You skip breakfast because the kitchen feels like lost time. Every win feels like a brief permission slip, not real safety. The mind says, I've made it. The body says, is it over yet? You never really arrive. You just cycle through bigger and emptier wins. Let that land. The deeper reason you grip so tightly isn't greed or ambition out of control. It's self-abandonment as a survival mechanism. You're not playing games with your ambition. Your ambition is protecting you from feeling unsafe, unloved, unnoticed. That's how survival strategies become habits. High performance at all costs is a nervous system response, not a personality trait. Quiet strivers train themselves to look stable while feeling exposed. On the surface, results. Underneath, exhaustion. If this shows up in your week, pause there. Sit with the truth that earning does not validate your worth. You felt this in your body for years, even if nobody said it clearly. Achievements unravel quickly when you realize they only bought you the right to be here temporarily. The reason this hurts so much isn't because you're ungrateful, but because you were trained to use external markers with internal permission. You don't need another win to justify your existence. You don't need more revenue to buy rest. This isn't theory. This is your nervous system adapting. You may still default to perfectionism, over-explaining, or outworking. Let's flip this. Most people think being sensitive makes money harder, but the truth is, sensitivity is ancestral memory. It's not a flaw. It is what lets you read the room before anyone speaks. It is how your body learns from every table you've ever sat at, and the tables your father, your mother, your grandparents sat at, too. That's not theory. That's how your nervous system works. So, before you decide your depth is a liability, check what your body actually remembers. The tightness you feel when the bell comes at dinner, that's not fresh or new. Most of the time, it's just a replay, something learned by watching, years before you had a paycheck. The way you hold your breath when the conversation turns to bonuses or cuts, that, too, is memory. Ancient dot practical, sometimes life-saving. Your body is not just reacting, it's referencing. Let that land. A lot of entrepreneurs walk around thinking their discomfort is personal weakness. In reality, it's a survival code passed down through blood and years. If you grew up seeing money as risk, your instincts will echo that. If your whole family flinched at abundance, treating wins with suspicion, equating extra with exposure, you'll find yourself doing the same. Even after years of working on your mindset, you're not broken. You're consistent. Here's what I want you to try. Next time you catch yourself shying away from an opportunity, not because you lack ambition, but because your chest tightens, your breathing gets shallow, pause there. Don't rush to override it. Don't call yourself lazy or afraid. Ask, whose pattern am I carrying right now? Is this mine, or did I learn this? You already know, if you're honest. Sensitivity is just your inheritance talking. There are those who chase money like it's always out of reach, hustling, striving, never able to hold still when a deal finally lands. For some, that's excitement. For most, it's an ancient alarm. Maybe someone in your line learned that cities still meant falling behind. Maybe comfort once led to loss. So now, you can't let yourself rest, even when you win. The urge to keep moving is passed down, rebranded as drive. But underneath, it's just memory, a body refusing to trust that enough is safe. That's the discipline. If you listen closely, you'll notice your instincts are quieter than your thoughts. You don't need to hype yourself up or compete for attention. Your interoception, that subtle awareness of your body's internal state, is an intelligence, not a setback. It tells the true story of your relationship to wealth. When your stomach drops as you open your banking app, or relief floods you after a client pays on time, these aren't just emotions. They are reminders of everything you've seen and absorbed. The body is honest. It remembers. This is where most people get stuck. They hate that their nervous system feels fragile. They want to be steel, unshakable. But steel bends too. Under enough pressure, what actually preserves wealth is your willingness to steward these signals, not suppress them. Quiet wealth is built on the ability to notice when you're about to flinch or chase, and choose not to perform. That choice, layer by layer, rewires the old codes. Not overnight, not with noise. Through grounded repetition, you can observe your daily habits and trace nearly all of them back to your family systems. The way you apologize for needing time off, even when no one asked. The way you double-check your accounts, as if stability can disappear in a day. The inability to spend without guilt, or the compulsion to empty your plate, finish every task, accept every deal. These are micro-expressions of ancestral memory, practice until they feel like personality. But they're not you. They're old safety loops. If this shows up in your week, pause there. Build capacity, not speed. Every time you respect the sensitive signal instead of bulldozing through it, you build trust with yourself. That's the foundation of sustainable wealth. Not hype, not bravado, not the myth of overnight resilience. Capacity is about holding more peace, not just more money. Anchor this once. Repeat when it wobbles. Quiet shift number 1 is claiming your sensitivity as a resource, not a liability. Your nervous system is not setting you back. Now listen closely. Asset protection isn't just about insurance policies or legal structures. The core asset is your nervous system, and most entrepreneurs don't protect it at all. Calm isn't a style to be admired. It is a direct reflection of capacity, your real ability to handle decisions without leaking energy or clarity in the process. Think about what really tanks portfolios. It's not just bad news, but panicked exits. In the world of money, regulated investors outperform reactive ones every single quarter. If you stay composed through the market cycle, you don't sell on the dip. You don't jump at every headline. You hold your ground. Regulation equals protection, not just of your income, but of your decision signal. Let that land. Now, apply that to your day-to-day. You walk into the office. Your phone is already banging with notifications. Your chest is tight. You skip breakfast. You respond to requests. Like you're dodging traffic. Each move costs more than you see. Entrepreneurial exhaustion isn't about how many hours you work. It's about the cost of responding with compressed signals, fast texts, yeses you regret, saying maybe when you mean no. That's silent asset erosion not seen on a spreadsheet, but your nervous system tracks every withdrawal. Here's what I want you to try. Next time you notice the compression, the urge to fix, to decide right now, pause. Don't push through. Notice what's happening in your body, not just your schedule. Ground yourself first. Exhale longer. Press your feet into the floor. Name the urgency for what it is. This is asset regulation, the act of not spending from panic. Over time, this is how you compound clarity, and like cash, clarity compounds quietly. When a reactive investor liquidates in fear, they might avoid one loss, but they set a pattern, exiting every time it feels tight. They exit their own process. Your nervous system works the same. If you answer every alert, you erode your ability to anchor. Over years, the regulated builder, the one who grounds before responding, ends up with more, not through some magical moral payoff, just through subtraction, less wasted action, less rework, fewer apologies, cleaner agreements. Every calm check-in, before you send the email, before you say yes on the call, is a retained asset. That's the discipline. This isn't a fix. It's a frame. Some days, you'll catch the urgency early, anchor, and decide from safety. Other days, you'll notice after the reaction. And that's okay. Anchor this once. Repeat when it wobbles. The point isn't perfection. It's to build capacity so the signal, the decisions, the agreements coming out of you are clean enough to trust. Again and again, if it shows up in your week, pause there. Maybe you're at the kitchen table, laptop open, phone buzzing, family in the next room. The urge is to keep chasing the next micro problem, to answer Slack while microwaving dinner, to squeeze another meeting into a tired morning. Notice how tired isn't just tired. It's your nervous system letting you know the signals are compressed. The work isn't to power through, but to step back and create room. Built-in regulation is a wealth protection act. You start to see yourself as the steward of your signal, not just your money. Let's take another grounded example. Meet Aaron, a client who ran his agency with nonstop crisis traffic. Every day was urgent. Team messages at midnight, calls during meals, a constant cycle of fast decisions. He wasn't burning out from ambition. He was distorting his own signal. When he paused to regulate, morning breathwork, pre-call grounding, evening digital curfew, he made fewer, better bets, margins improved, team turnover shrank. He didn't add more hours. He removed reactivity. The wealth curve smoothed out. The asset was never time. It was nervous. System bandwidth. Regulation isn't about being less emotional. It's about rerouting energy into clarity. Financial institutions pay millions for risk officers to create buffer before crisis. You get to be your own risk officer. Build capacity, not speed. The habit isn't glamorous. It's built in the smallest pause you allow before you respond. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. Regulated investors outperform reactive ones. Let's flip this for most. Stillness looks like a pause, an interruption, something you do between real work. The myth is that productivity is about constant output, that the loudest voice in the room carries the most weight. But stillness isn't what fills the gap between doing. Stillness is the well that fuels everything else, in strategy, leadership, and money. The most credible person isn't always the one with the best answers. It's usually the one least frayed by noise, most anchored in their own presence. Watch someone who owns a room with silence. They're not retreating, they're commanding. There's nothing accidental about it. Quiet people aren't slow. They're exact. There's order underneath the quiet. Every gesture, every nod, every word lands because it wasn't rushed. Think about the last time you walked into a meeting. With a clear head, notice how your responses slowed down, not because your mind was blank, but because you weren't in a scramble to prove your value. This is inward presence. It's not the absence of thinking. It's the discipline of holding enough room inside so you see what matters, hear what gets overlooked, sense when the room changes. If you've spent years managing chaos, this can feel foreign. Most entrepreneurs and leaders are wired to fill space with upgrades, opinions, feedback. You're rewarded for activity. But look at the ones who last. They operate from a different signal. Their credibility isn't built on hypervisibility. It's built on steadiness, the subtle power of listening before moving. They're comfortable with quiet, not just around them, inside them. That's the shift. Here's what I want you to try when you sit at your desk tomorrow. Take stock. Notice how often you're moving to fill time, opening tabs, scrolling between tasks, firing off messages as a reflex. Pause for 60 seconds, not to check out, but to actually check in. Where's the noise landing? Your jaw, your chest, the pulse in your mood, instead of defaulting to action. Let presence lead. This isn't productivity theater. It's operational clarity. If the urge to jump in is strong, sit with it. Let that itch pass. Notice how your sense of what's important sharpens when you don't rush it. There's an edge here, for leaders especially. It's subtle but real. Inward presence creates room for others to bring their best, too. Ever had a boss who diffuses tension just by sitting still? Whose posture says, "I'm not moving until it's clear"? That's not passive. It's high-stakes stewardship. The same rule applies to money. Wealth isn't just spreadsheets and investments. It's the emotional container that can hold uncertainty. Without impulsive moves, the strongest balance sheet starts in the nervous system. Stillness won't make you famous, but it makes your results sustainable. Real power isn't about being everywhere. It's about being where you are, fully. This isn't a fix. It's a frame. There's a reason old builders protected their quiet like capital. Solitude wasn't an indulgence. It was an asset. Time without agenda. Space to recalibrate. You can't buy that on the back end of a busy week. You earn it by making quiet time non-negotiable. Block it like payroll. Guard it like you guard your reputation. No one will do it for you. In fact, the world will keep asking for more access, more upgrades, more availability. Every time you say yes to noise, you teach your nervous system to expect it. Every time you hold the line, you signal capacity to yourself and to those you lead. Anchor this once. Repeat when it wobbles. Maybe right now, solitude feels uncomfortable or pointless. Maybe it stirs up anxiety because you're not filling time with something visible. That's common. It passes. Quiet doesn't mean you're not working. It means you're reordering. Most people around, you won't understand why you're protecting silence, especially if they're addicted to motion. Let them wonder. There's nothing to prove. Stillness isn't a luxury. It's scaffolding for every important decision you make. The deeper your presence, the stronger your boundaries, the better your outcomes. Build capacity, not speed. This isn't about heroic meditation or digital detox. It's about small, repeatable moments of presence. A breath before a call, 5 minutes in a chair before opening Slack. Ending your day not in reactive exhaustion, but with one intentional exhale, letting the system reset over time. This is how you change your relationship to pressure. Stress doesn't disappear. It becomes something you ride, not something that rides you. Quiet people know. The quieter you get inside, the more you can see what's actually moving the needle. If this shows up in your week, pause there. You're not missing out. You're building in. Let the world chase external signals. Let your credibility be the signal. Stillness isn't strategy for its own sake. It's access to the kind of insight, patience, and composure that compound. Others might miss it. That's fine. You're not here to be noticed. You're here to build durability. No one regrets the room they made for themselves later. Protect your solitude. There comes a point where striving loses meaning. You stop asking, "How do I get ahead?" You start asking, "What builds real order?" That's the turn. It doesn't look dramatic on the outside. Inside, it's the difference between white-knuckling and holding steady. You're not looking for a new hack or a morning routine. You rate choosing not to abandon yourself where it matters when the world gets noisy and the mind wants to run. When memory holds value not as nostalgia, but as evidence of what works, something shifts. It's a quiet reference point. Think about the way you handle money now. After years of reacting and regretting, you already know when a purchase is a relief and when it's just a distraction. You've watched yourself repeat cycles, and you've also seen flashes of what actually protects your days of block calendar. A 10-minute walk, a hard stop when you're spent. Those moments are proof. Let that land. You don't need to earn the right to trust them. You just need to use them. That's what real memory is for. It doesn't pull you backward. It stabilizes your forward pace. Quiet builders learn that regulation is not optional when the stakes get high. The world will praise urgency, but urgency rarely protects anything worth keeping. Emotional regulation is what keeps your standards from collapsing when results slow down, when deals fall through, when progress flatlines, when nobody's watching. Most people won't notice when you quietly choose a slower response over a reactive one, but your nervous system will. That's the discipline. When things go sideways, do you default to chasing or to order? Every time you anchor in calm, you're proving that pressure doesn't get to run your operation anymore. You've got that power now. You're not waiting for perfect conditions, just reliable containment. Here's what I want you to try. Next time your heart rate spikes or shame creeps in, pause before you self-correct. Don't make it dramatic. Just give yourself 30 seconds. Let your body finish the stress cycle before you re-engage. That moment of neutral is where protection gets rebuilt. Stillness isn't about withdrawal or inaction. It's about depth, staying with what matters long enough for the noise to die down. Anybody can be still when nothing's pressuring them. The real measure is what you do when the market panics, when your phone lights up with bad news, when a team member fumbles. Do you jump to fix, or do you let stillness create clarity? It's a quieter kind of authority. You become the field that absorbs the weather, not the leaf tossed by it. Stillness multiplies depth the same way compounding interest multiplies wealth, slowly, gradually, then all at once, and it doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. If this shows up in your weak, pause there. Notice if you're reaching for activity, or if you're letting a little emptiness open up space. That's not laziness, that's stewardship. At some point, the game moves from performance to preservation, not because results don't matter, but because capacity can't be faked. This isn't about doing more. It's about no longer abandoning what's working, no more breaking your own structure for someone else's urgency, no more explaining why rest is allowed, no more apologizing for the systems that anchor you when the world runs fast and loose. Safety is your ROI. Keep anchoring there. Let these truths walk with you. I pause before I respond. I create rhythm that protects me. I build clarity through structure. I choose rest without guilt. I let memory guide, not shame me. I anchor in regulation when chaos pulls. I defend my capacity without justification. I let stillness deepen, not dull, my action. Quiet wealth is built on capacity. Quiet wealth is built on capacity. Quiet wealth is built on capacity. If you want something to hold until tomorrow, try this. Where, in the last week, did you abandon calm for urgency? And what would it look like, just once, to let order protect you instead? Let that sit. No fix required. This is the Quiet Millionaire.